A lot of the top players in this portal are at the wide receiver position. Specifically for us here at On 3, at last I checked, you have, I believe, 3 of the top 4 players, and that's subject to change, but a myriad of the top players within the transfer portal for us right now at on3.com are at the wide receiver position. So I want to go through here and talk about a couple specific difference makers at this position and try and play some matchmaker, if you will. So this isn't a prediction, this is not intel, but just where we could see them fitting and maybe being difference makers this time next year. Let's start with the number 1 player in the whole darn portal. That's Eric Singleton. Receiver at Georgia Tech, tore it up each of his 2 seasons there, over 700 yards. I mean, averaged 14 yards a catch on his career at Georgia Tech. Got a couple of SEC visits lined up. You hear Georgia in the mix for him. You hear, I believe, Auburn in the mix for him. I think Ole Miss makes the most sense. Because if I'm Eric Singleton, I don't want to go somewhere where I'm not 100% sure I'm going to have a guy at quarterback. Now, Gunnar Stockton, we'll see what he is at Georgia. 100% true. Auburn, they're going to go try and land a guy in the portal. I fully believe that when it comes to the quarterback position. However, I'm looking at Ole Miss and I'm like, man, Austin Simmons, in a very small sample size against Georgia, that one drive, he was slinging the pill around the yard. If I'm Eric Singleton, you got Trey Harris leaving the league. Probably will be a more major focal point of the offense if I do go there. Also, like there's a portal blueprint for success at that position with the Duce Wells, and I don't think Duce Wells had that great a year this year. Trey Harris is probably the poster child for portal success at that wide receiver position for Ole Miss. So Ole Miss makes a ton of sense to me, and that would be the spot that I would look most closely if I were Eric Singleton and making my selection when it comes to my next destination. Kevin Concepcion, not Kevin Conception, Kevin Concepcion. Little accent on that. Couple of SEC schools in the mix for him. I think Alabama makes a lot of sense for the NC State transfer. Like, if I'm him, I rewind the clock a little bit and I check out that 2023 season where I saw Kalen DeBoer just eat greedy with a stacked wide receiving core. You got Roma Dunze in the league. You got Jalen Polk. I mean, you had Jeremy Bernard in that receiving core is now Alabama. Like, you look at what Kalen DeBoer does when he has weapons, everybody eats. Everybody eats. And we'll see what they are at quarterback, but I do know this. Ryan Williams, him back in the fold for Alabama next season, take a little bit of pressure off Kevin Concepcion, allow them to be able to attack downfield. Also, Alabama, it's worth noting, I think they have a little bit more of a desire to push vertical. Like, the offense this year was like Jalen Milroe's the best athlete on the field. He can throw the football, but we really get cooking when he's cooking on the ground. Also, there's nobody outside of Ryan Williams to pop the top on a defense. You add Kevin Concepcion, potentially someone who can push the ball more vertical for Alabama. Alabama, even with what I just said about their limitations offensively this year, they were still top 10 in college football when it came to yards per pass. So I like Kevin Concepcion to potentially end up at Alabama. That, to me, makes a lot of sense. That would be the match I would pick out for him. Now, you got not one, but 2 big-time Kentucky transfer wide receivers. We'll start with Barry and Brown. Dane Key also in the portal, but Barry and Brown to me is most intriguing just because of the way that you can utilize him in the return game, utilize him in the screen game. Like, just get the ball to Barry and Brown, dude. Like, it's not that hard. If I'm the OC, get it to him, get it to him consistently. The match for me with him is LSU. Now, I think a lot of this is probably contingent upon Garrett Nussmeier coming back to LSU. My personal opinion is it would benefit Garrett Nussmeier to get another year in Baton Rouge. But like if I'm Barry and Brown, I want to go somewhere where I know I'll get a pretty high volume of targets. I know we're going to throw the football. I know we got a quarterback. So Garrett Nussmeier comes back, checks one of those boxes. LSU last year threw the ball 60% of the time. Barry and Brown really flashed on the scene in college football his freshman year. Why? Because he had a quarterback in Will Levis. Past couple of years, Barry and Brown's been trying to make it go with sticks and glue here. Like, he's been trying to just piece it together, paper mache it all together. I would love that fit for him. In the Joe Sloan offense, a little more wide open. He becomes more of a focal point. Kyron Lacey gone to the league, hypothetically. I think that would make a lot of sense. So Barry and Brown getting to stay in the SEC, still have that filter for the NFL draft, and just be another weapon for Garrett Nussmeier in Baton Rouge. I think that would make a ton of sense. Now, Dane Key is another receiver that's transferring from Kentucky. And here's the thing, like, for both Barry and Brown and Dane Key, it's hard to blame either of those guys, man. Like, what I just said about Barry and Brown in the quarterback situation, the same way I feel about Dane Key. You can't blame him. Like, he was he's doing his best with, and Devin Leary I thought was going to be a lot better than he was at Kentucky. Brock Vandagriff, same deal, thought he'd be a lot better. Like, they gave it the old college try, pun intended. Dane Key averaged 14 yards a catch as well during his career at Kentucky. You got two ballers here that are looking to go play somewhere else and hopefully have a little more success with a better quarterback. One destination that's in the mix for Dane Key that I think makes sense and I think is probably the match for him is Nebraska. One part of this is his receiver coach from Kentucky is now at Nebraska. That happened all within the last week or so. So, again, people commit to people. Dane Key follows his receiver coach. And also, by the way, playing with a quarterback in Dylan Raiola, who can, spin it quite a bit, a little Pat Mahomes Jr. out there, that would make sense to me. So I think with the demand for Nebraska to go get more weapons for Dylan Raiola and for the personal connection for Dane Key to Nebraska as his receiver coach, that to me feels like a match made in heaven. So I would love that one. Now, here's a couple of other interesting ones. Yesterday, if you're tracking on the socials, if you're following the On3 Twitter account, following Pete Nakos, which, again, if you're not doing that, let's lock in. No more funny business. Time to lock in, all right? Follow both those accounts. Duce Robinson, former 5-star. Get that alert. Hey, he's jumping in the portal. Now, Duce Robinson was previously at USC. He's going to go somewhere else. Georgia was in the mix for him towards the end of his recruitment out of high school. Duce Robinson, I think, will be someone who continues to play two sports because he's just a freak show baseball player as well. You know what? When I look at the way that he projects going forward, like, I'm not so sure I don't like him at Texas. Like, Georgia, again, makes sense. They need receivers. All that is true. But, again, if I'm Duce Robinson, Texas baseball program, from my understanding, is pretty solid. Again, I'm not a baseball guy, but that's what the streets are telling me. The security at quarterback, I think, is a massive part of this. Like Arch Manning being the guy for you next year and the idea of playing with him on the gridiron, like, that to me makes a ton of sense. Now, I think the pushback would be, well, hey, listen, JD, like, Texas is a loaded wide receiver room. 100% true. Ryan Wingo is an absolute stud. I'm sure that they will probably be a portal destination for other guys as well, seeing the success they've had with an Adonai Mitchell and with Isaiah Bond and Silas Bolden. But, like, here's the deal. There's very few, if any, wide receivers running around in that room that are 6'6", 220 pounds. Like, any way you slice it, Duce Robinson is a different kind of player than Texas has in that wide receiver room. So, bottom line, you always need dudes that are 6'6", 220 and can go track fly balls for you. Like, that's the limit does not exist to the kind of guys or the number of those kind of guys that you need. So, I like Texas for him. Go be another portal success story for Steve Sarkisian. One more I want to talk about here, C.J. Daniels. Now, he was previously in the transfer portal. He's a guy that we talked about a little bit when he jumped into the transfer portal. I think he's a little bit more of a low-profile entry just because he didn't have a crazy, splashy year at LSU. But you rewind the tape a year ago, he was a 1,000-plus yard wide receiver at Liberty under Hugh Freeze and under Caden Salter playing quarterback for him. Now, he goes to LSU, and like I said, not a super splash year, but he still had over 400 yards receiving. He would have been third in Georgia's current wide receiver room with the numbers of over 400 yards. I believe he was north of 40 receptions as well. The bottom line is Georgia, they need receivers. C.J. Daniels, I believe, from the state of Georgia. Maybe you get back home, throw on the G logo. I don't think the fact that the wide receiver room at Georgia won't be enormously crowded hurts things as well. I think C.J. Daniels to Georgia makes a ton of sense. Going back to what I just said about the crowded receiver room. The pushback there would be, well, JD, don't you want guys that are going to take pressure off of C.J. Daniels if I commit to a school like that? I think C.J. Daniels just came from a school like that in LSU. Like, he's done the whole deal where you got Kyron Lacey in the room, and you got, I mean, you go down the line here. You got White, I believe is his name. Who's the slot receiver at LSU? Escaping. I can't remember his name. Anyway, Tre'Davious White, is that who it is? Aaron Anderson. Okay, I'm tripping here. I got my LSU guys all mixed up. Aaron Anderson, thank you. Bottom line here, you've done that before. Go play in a room where you're going to be the guy, get targets, be close to home. Makes all the sense in the world to me. So those are the matches we like when it comes to the transfer portal wide receiver market.